Hey guys, and welcome back to G's Autos, and welcome to 2023. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, this is my first video for 2023 and my first video in about 5 months, nearing 6 months possibly. Look, everything's just basically with the channel has taken a back seat since having our third bub. I've been really focused on family and spending time with everyone, and just everything car related has just been pushed to the side, obviously, as you can tell by the lack of videos. But there have been some things going on in the background. Plus, my partner and I have also started a small side business, just a little bit of fun with the family, with the boys, and just to do that on the side. So there's been a little bit of time setting that up and getting that organised. But as we're now into 2023, I'll be focused back onto the Starlet. We've got another engine there to get rebuilt, since the current engine is quite cactus and spewing oil out everywhere. So we're going to get the engine rebuilt. We'll go through videos doing that. Tim at EFI Logic will be handling all of that. And then we'll be moving on to supercharging the Starlet, the beast. But anyway, this video is all about the blue Starlet, where a whole bunch of maintenance needed to be done. We're talking rear main seal, new clutch, the cam seals, front crank seal, radiator, and a whole bunch of bits and pieces and everything like that. So it was long overdue for a lot of maintenance, but it's all been done now. So this video, we're just gonna, it's not a step-by-step process, but it's to give you a good idea of what's involved if you're looking to do that yourself at home. But anyway, guys, enough out of me. I hope you like the video. I hope you can stay tuned for 2023 to see what's coming up. And thank you very much for everyone's support over the last 12 months. I really appreciate all the comments, and I apologise for not getting back to everyone's comments of late, probably the last 3 months. I really do apologise for that, and I'll get on to answering those shortly. Anyway, guys, enough out of me. I hope you like the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Alright, so it is maintenance time for the poor old blue Starlet. The clutch is cactus in this thing, and the rear main seal has a slight leak. Plus all the tyres are worn out, and the radiator is now starting to turn that festy brown look. So the plastic's starting to wear out, and after 350,000 Ks, I'm not surprised. And so I've got a new radiator to go in it. So let's have a look at those parts now. Alright, so this one here is a full clutch kit. So we've got the plate. The rest of the kit is in here. Now the good thing about it, this also comes with, sorry guys, I'm just juggling tight space here. Comes with the bearing, also the alignment tool. Then here's the rear main seal. I haven't checked the part number on the rear main seal to double check to make sure it is correct, but you will find out, like me, if it is wrong. There'll be lots of tears. And the flywheel. And there's the flywheel already machined up. This was my spare one from the white Starlet. It was sitting in the shed, had it machined up and cleaned during the week, so that one there is good to go. So what we're going to do now is start by, I'll take off all this air intake bits and pieces, air box, all of that. I'll take out the battery, just move all that stuff out of the way so we've got a lot more space to work with, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so there's all the parts off the air intake setup. Now mine, like a lot of other air intakes on these Starlets, in between one of those ribs it's actually cracked. So I will need to replace that at some stage. And all the bolts holding all these bits and pieces in are all 10 mils. So nice and easy. Now that that's all clear, a bit dirty down there, might need to give that a little bit of a clean up. I'll take out this battery. Alright, so I've gone through and removed the two 12mm bolts from the clutch slave cylinder. So I've just put the bolts back into the gearbox so I don't lose them. There was, let me get some light over here. There was that electrical connector down here onto the gearbox. I've taken that off. There was also this little bracket here holding the clutch line on. So I've just put the bolt back in there. That was a 12 mil, sorry, or a 10 mil, 10 or a 12 mil. I'll put it on the screen. And this little bunch of cables here for the wiring harness, this little clip here just slides off that bracket. Then you can get into there. I'm not too sure if I can show you. There's a little 12 mil down there which I've put back into the gearbox so I don't lose it. The little clips down the back there that hold the gear cables on, I've popped those off with the little washers and those horseshoe type clips that hold these cables down here. They've both been removed. Sorry about if it's a bit blurry there, guys. What I'm going to do now is remove some of these bolts from up top here that are holding the bell housing onto the block. Alright guys, so I've just gone through and I've loosened off some of these bolts. So down in here, if you can see it, there's a 17 there for the bell housing. Then there is another one just there. Now there's a bracket that sits behind that just there. So I've taken it right out, taken the bracket off, and then put that 17 mil back into there just so I don't lose it for now. Now, just down in here, if you can see it, it's not a very good angle. Down in there is a 17 for the bell housing. Then right next to it is a 14 mil for one of the starter motor bolts. And then the second starter motor bolt is just down in there. There's another 14. So I've taken all those out. The speedo cable, that sheath there, let's see if I can get you a better angle. That sheath that sits on the outside of the cable, that just needs to get undone counterclockwise, and then the cable comes up. Now there may be, I know on the Corollas, was there a little bracket holding that one in? Yeah, there's a little bracket that sits in there and holds the sensor in there, so just be careful of that. And when you're taking these 17 mil bolts out for the bell housing, we just used a breaker bar just to loosen them off. Just be careful you don't smash your dizzy. Just be careful of that. You don't break anything on the cap. Just be conscious of that. And then anything that was in the way, we've just basically moved out of the way. Just pinned it elsewhere so it doesn't hang down and get in the way. That earth strap, we just removed that. We're going to go through now and remove back off the bolts on the engine mount, on the gearbox mount, and then we'll show you what we're doing next. Alright guys, so we're just going through and cracking all the bolts on the gearbox mounts. So I've just got the engine / gearbox just supported there for the moment. So all these ones here, so there's one there, one there, one there, one there, and there's just, whoa, one up in there which has already been taken out, so we've just left those ones in. They've just been cracked. Now let's have a look at some more bolts. Alright, so here is the sandwich plate on the back side of the gearbox. So there was a 12 mil bolt, a 14 mil bolt, and two 10 mil bolts just holding that sandwich plate in place. So they've all been fully removed. Now we'll go have a look at the rear gearbox mount. Alright, rear gearbox mount. There's that big bolt right there. So that needed to be backed off. Hasn't fully come out yet, so it's still slightly in place. And now let's have a look at the other fun bolts for that rear mount. Alright, so here we are, further under the car. So there was, I'm trying to do this, there's one there, bolt there, and then there's two bolts, one there and the one above it. So these ones have been, whoop, that one there's been cracked, and whoop, that one there's been cracked, and the one from the top used a breaker bar from the top side of the engine just to break it, and then used a long 14 mil spanner to loosen that one off. Alright, on to the next step. Alright, removing the CV shafts, drive shafts. Alright, so that tie rod has been removed from the knuckle. The two bolts one there and one there that hold the knuckle to the strut. Whoop! They've been removed. And what else was there? Oh, the caliper's been removed from the knuckle as well, and pardon me, that's just been hooked up there out of the way, so it's not dangling and you're not putting pressure on your brake line. Sorry about the bad lighting there. So that's what we've done there. And then, yeah, look, some of these can tap out fairly easily. This one came out nice and easy, and it's just resting in there. Some of them you just may need to gently tap out in the right spot to get them out, because sometimes they do seize, or not seize, but stick in there pretty firmly. Anyway, my brother's doing the other side at the moment as I ramble on here, and now we'll move on to the next step. Now I'm just showing you a little arrow on the screen showing you one little 14mm bolt as part of the bell housing that was hiding up the back there. So it's pretty much where the drive shaft comes out. It's directly above that. So cheeky little sucker was hiding just up there. Alright, the engine has now been supported. So there's our bar going across there. A couple of blocks of wood and some screws to hold it all in place, and a chain linked on there to the hook on the engine. Now we'll go through and loosen off all those and remove those gearbox mount bolts and move on to the next step. Alright, so the gearbox has been supported underneath by the jack. I'll just give you a quick look at that. That's supporting the gearbox. All the bell housing bolts have been removed, and all the bolts have been removed from the rear gearbox mount, and the two bolts holding the gearbox mount at the front have been removed. Now just some wiggling and some jiggling, and the gearbox is now separating from the block. So now we'll just, because there's a couple of dowels in there, just make sure you clear those before lowering the box out. Alright, so the gearbox is out, as you can see. That came out good. Now I'm just going to go through and remove that clutch now, get those bolts out, rip that out and move on to the next step. Alright, these are the parts of the clutch. Just a tiny little bit of meat left on that. There's a look at the other bits and pieces. There's the original flywheel. Alright, let's have a look at the gearbox. I'll just pinch this light here. So the seat, you can see where the throwout bearing sits, there's a little bit of wear. Let's see if I can get you some better light. There's some wear on that seat for the bearing. Now that's all been cleaned off now. We'll pack that really well with grease. Sorry about the light. And all the splines have been cleaned up. And just a little bit of gunk and all sitting around the base, that's just been cleaned off. So we'll, and I think the fork's been cleaned up as well, the clutch fork. So we'll grease everything up, get the bearing on there with the fork, and get that ready. Alright, the clutch fork has been put back on, the bearing's on there, so that that clutch fork has been pressed onto the spring. So that's locked into place. That shaft has all been lubed up with the new bearing. There's a little bit of play in that where the bearing sits on the seat, but look, it is what it is. I don't think this car's been very well maintained in its life. Where that original bearing was, it was fairly dry, so it has worn the seat a fair bit. But anyway, the clutch fork boot is being put back on. So this part of the box is all ready to go. We haven't replaced the drive shaft seals. Yeah, not worrying about it at this stage. They're not leaking, so do them again. Do them at another time. But anyway, let's see if I can show you that play in the bearing. Just bear with me for a sec, guys. Not too sure if you can really see that. A little bit of play there, but Anyway, we'll see how she goes. Alright, that rear main seal is out. So it was just a matter of getting a small screwdriver on the inside lip and just getting under those little sections there and just gently, bit by bit, just prying it out ever so gently, so you don't want to damage any of the seat where the seal sits. Otherwise you're going to have all sorts of dramas, let me tell you. But that's out. That one's pretty old and manky, and yeah, so we've got a brand spanker, as you know, to go back in. Alright, the new rear main seal is in. The seat for the seal had a couple of marks in it, so it's been thoroughly cleaned out, and a couple of little burrs just cleaned up with some very fine sandpaper and some WD-40. Skeptical at this stage. I think this car's had a pretty rough life. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully the seal holds and it's not going to continue leaking oil from the back end here. But anyway, I'm going to put the sandwich plate on, and then we'll move on to getting the clutch all sorted. So the replacement flywheel, the machined one, is going back on. Just putting the bolts on now, finger tight for now. Then we'll get them sorted. So that's all looking good. Alright, clutch is in. We'll soon see how good my centering skills are. See how good or bad. Alright, so fast forward a couple of days. So this is, I suppose you could call it the second part of this video. We had to move things along a little bit just before, because we were running out of daytime. I had to get home and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. But here we are now. So everything's been put back in and buttoned up. Not everything, I should say. So the gearbox cables down there still need to get it reattached. We're just going to put a fresh batch of oil into the gearbox, and the oil going in will be this. So just putting that one there in. I think it takes either 1.9 litres or 2.4, not too sure, we'll work that out. But anyway, that's where we're up to. And we have decided to put some other parts in, which will be a timing belt kit, water pump, front crank seal, cam seals, all those good little bits and pieces. May as well get all the maintenance done while we've got everything apart. Alright, let's keep going. Now, I just thought I'd show this to everyone, because I've never actually seen one before. So this is obviously not an electronic speedo in this. So this is just the, I suppose you could call it the gear set that goes into, so your cable goes in the end there, your speedo cable goes in the end there, and if you just turn that to the side, you'll see the little gear set that sits inside the gearbox, and as it winds the cable and turns over your odometer it sets your speedo up on the gearbox. So I just wanted to show that. Pretty cool. Alright, so just preparing to take off all the bits and pieces necessary to attack this timing belt. So I had to back off the tension on the alternator. There was a 12mm on the top side, and on the bottom side there's a 14mm. You'll need a ratchet and socket spanner. And then just backed off the tension on all the bolts here holding this front engine mount. And then also backed off the bolt holding the tensioner pulley, and the one on the bracket as well. And so we'll move on to the next step. I think all the gearbox oil is done. Canisters back in, speedo cables back in, gear cables are back, gearbox cables are back in, and looks like the battery's about to go back in. Alright. Okay, so here's that engine mount, and this is how it would look facing on the engine. Now, there was the 14 bolt there, 14 there, 10mm there, 14 on the side there, but underneath there was this thread coming down there with a nut on it, a 14mm. So I needed a really long extension to get right up between the body and the engine to back that one off and get it off. But anyway, that's all back on. I've put everything just slotted in the hole so I don't get them all mixed up, because I am that kind of person. And now we're going to keep moving on. Alright, so that pulley on the tensioner.
Nana has a big bottle of Coke in the fridge.
Okay, no worries, buddy. Thanks, mate. That on that pulley, which is off this one here, the belt tensioner. Now on the front of that is a plate that sits on there. Your 14mm on there, but just be careful when you're taking it off, because on the back of it there's that little spacer there. Okay, so just be conscious of that when you're actually pulling it apart, so you don't lose bits and pieces and then be going, oh, like I do. Alright guys, so there's that bottom pulley. That's the outside pulley on the bottom of the outside of the crank there. So that's just 412s. That's been removed. Now, just lining up the top dead centre. So I'm just going to come around here. Now, I'll just get this light. Just bear with me for a sec. You'll see 4E marked there on the pulley there. So that's been spun around. Now, let me see if I can get you in there. See that circle directly underneath the 4E? When you look through there, there's a notch. There is a notch. You'll see the other notch. It's a notch like that one there. So that circle there should line up directly over the top of the other notch. And down here on the crank, I'm not too sure, you probably won't be able to see it up from up here, but there's a 0 mark on the housing down here. That should line up with the notch there. So that notch there, oh sorry guys, that notch there marked in yellow lines up with 0 on the housing, the plastic housing, and that circle there, oops sorry, that circle there should sit over the top, directly over the top of the notch. I hope that explains it fairly well if you haven't done this before. Alright guys, so down there on the actual crank pulley itself, you'll see a little paint mark. Now that lines up with a little metal notch in the metal housing behind it, directly behind it. So once you've got those two lined up, you've actually got top dead center. So we've done that after preliminary. It was actually already spot on after the preliminary timing check, so that's all good. So obviously you can only get to that once you take that bottom plastic timing cover off to get to that, and we've checked that, so that's all good. Now I'm just going to bring you up to the top part of the engine. Now that bolt there holding that main cam pulley, so didn't use a socket or a breaker bar to gently try and get that off. Had to use the rattle gun so it cracks it off, so that way you're not then adjusting the timing. So basically just need to shock that off. That's all been done as well. Alright, so that top pulley has come off. Taken that off. Taken the belt tensioner and the other pulley off to the side. That's all been removed. As you can see, there's a fair bit of oil that's been, see if I can get the light down there, fair bit of oil that's been leaking. So hopefully we'll get all those seals replaced and stop all that oil leak. Fingers crossed. That crank pulley came off nice and easy. That was actually pretty good, and the pulley on the oil pump, that just comes straight off. There's no key on the pulley for the oil pump, but there obviously is for the crank. That's all off now, and that once that's off, you can then get to that seal behind there, which we have a replacement for. Alright, so these are the old seals that came out. This one here is off the oil pump, so that needed just a small screw threaded into it to get that one out. That was a real bugger, that one. I know everyone's got their own way of getting seals out, so argue amongst yourselves. And that one there, that's the crank seal, front crank seal. So just had to tap that one on the side a little bit, just to give it a little bit of an out, and then gently just pull that one out. And I've got a mozzie the size of mine. That was a pterodactyl. Look at the size of this thing. That's a mozzie. Man. Anyway, pick you up and drag you away. Anyway, so yeah, so this one here, just tap it to the side, and once that edge was out, just gently take it out. And that one there, that was a real bugger. Yeah, just got to be so careful taking these out. You don't score the seat for the seal, otherwise you're buggered. Anyway, that's those out, and that's the old timing belt. There's a new water pump that will be going on. Has a pressed on pulley, propeller on the back. Ooh. Alright, so just had to skip ahead here. It's just one of those days again, guys, where we're pressed for time. So all the seals have been replaced. Now all that surface area there where it was all oily and gunky, all that was cleaned down before taking the seals out, just so when the seals were replaced we didn't have gunk and slop falling down in there and getting in our way and mucking things up. Now the water pump's off, as you can see down here. Now I had to get that engine mount unbolted and out of the way so we can get to all the bolts for the water pump. So I'm just going to go through and make sure this surface area here, this mating surface for the water pump, is all clean and there's no debris. That way the gasket gets a nice clean surface to mate against. And then we'll get that on, and then I think that's it. We can start putting all this back together. Anyway, we'll keep pushing on. Alright, water pump is on. Now I struggled to get that water pump on with that bracket being held up there, so we just took the bracket off and was able to get the water pump on nice and easy. So we're just going to start putting all these few bits and pieces back together. We'll put that bracket back on and then get all the other stuff here buttoned up and all sorted. Alright, as you can see, everything, well mostly everything has been put back on and the belt's on. All the tensioners are done, so we cycled it a couple of times with the belt on just to make sure it stayed in time and all good, so that crank bolt can come out now down the bottom and the crank pulley can go back on. And then I'm pretty sure once that's on we can finish off this engine mount, get the cover and all that. We'll get the cover on and then the engine mount, and I think that's pretty good. And then just that tensioner there for the belt, and we're looking good. Alright guys, I've just transported you in time by a week and back working on the Starlet, so ran out of time the other weekend just to had to get the kids home, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So all of that cover is now on. I just need to put that tensioner, idler, pulley, whatever you want to call it, back onto there. Got the rear engine mount. We'll take a look at that shortly. And then the other job today is to replace this radiator, and then I just need to double check all my bolt tightness on this side for all that suspension bits and pieces, and then I think we're kind of good to go. Put all that back on. A quick look over here. Brother's done a running repair on this. That all was broken, that rib section as usual. So he's done a bit of a job there to try and protect that, stop it from sucking air in where it shouldn't. We'll take a look at that engine mount now. Just bear with me for a sec. Put that down. And here is the engine mount. $175 for the engine mount. So I'll take that out. I'll give you another look at it once it's out of the plastic. But anyway, let's get rocking and rolling and jump back onto this one. Alright, laughing emojis are accepted. Thank you very much. Round of applause. Cheers. Thank you. Alright, radiator is out. As you can see, we'll come over here. Okay, here's the old radiator. It's in pretty good nick. It's just that the plastic on top, the capping or whatever you want to call it, this end, it's just browned, and that's when it starts to deteriorate and possibly crack, and then you're in trouble. Let's not wait for that to happen. Alright, so I've undone the 410 mils that hold the thermofan onto it. Here is the new radiator. Oh, beautiful. Let's swap that fan over, get it bolted up, and get that radiator back in. Alright, so on this radiator, on the top where the mounts go, this design here is different to the factory one. So what we've had to do is, I've taken the the original rubber lining out of the mount, out of the radiator mount. Now that helps it to fit, but then what you got to do here is this tab here compared to that, just need to bend it back this way a little bit, and then what we've done on the other one is just put a piece of this insulating foam over that, and then it's going to hold down nicely. Just a bit of adaptation there, but I might have some, I think I've got a bunch of Corolla radiator mounts at home which might fit a little bit better, but this will do the job for now because no one has radiators in stock. Alright, so the radiator is in, and I'm pretty happy with how that's fitted now with modifying those radiator brackets. So she's fairly snug, looking good. So obviously the radiator needs water to go in. Brother's doing the rear engine mount, replacing that with a newbie. Let's take a look at the old one. There's the old one, and it's fairly cactus. It's starting to break away from the housing. So good to see that one go. That's it there. Once water is in the radiator and that rear engine mount is done, just a matter of double checking the tension on bits and pieces, making sure everything is squared away, get the belts on, water in the radiator, and air intake, start her up, and yeah, it's ready for Le Mans. Fired straight up, first crack, beautiful. Yeah. Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. So just had fresh oil, new filter. The air filter's still good, so this is running very nice. So just need to put it on the ground, tighten up those wheel nuts on this side, and this thing should be good to go.